I'm Diane Reese, and I'm one of the project officers for the Gulf of Mexico Division. This presentation is focused on the EPA Gulf of Mexico Division's funding opportunity that was recently released entitled Farmer to Farmer 2024 BIL, which is funded from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, also known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or BIL. From here forward, I will refer to this funding opportunity as the NOFO. The purpose of this presentation is to assist potential applicants to develop the best application they can. This presentation will highlight some important information and provide a strategy for getting started. This presentation should not be used in place of reading or following instructions in a NOFO, as this is not meant to be an all-encompassing presentation and only outlines portions of a NOFO. This presentation will touch on the items listed on this slide: EPA Gulf of Mexico Division, what to know about this NOFO, eligible location, getting started, project narrative and tips, developing your budget table, evaluation criteria, submitting your application, the selection process, helpful resources, and questions. So what is the EPA Gulf of Mexico Division? GMD is one of EPA's Great Water Body programs and is focused on the protection and restoration of the health and productivity of the Gulf of Mexico. GMD activities are centered around voluntary, partner-driven projects. All project activities must take place in the geographic category identified in the NOFO and within the Gulf of Mexico watershed. The link to GMD's webpage is epa.gov/Gulf of Mexico. On this page, you can find more information about GMD, links to this NOFO, information on previously funded projects, annual reports, our strategic plan, and more. So what to know about this NOFO? This funding opportunity is for GMD's Farmer to Farmer program. Project activities must support at least one of GMD's metrics for water quality improvements, protection, enhancement, or restoration of habitat, and increasing resilience of farming communities. Each application must have all 4 activities found in project elements in Section 1B. They are novel or innovative techniques, methods, or approaches to improve water quality, habitat, or resiliency. Collaboration, including within and among farming communities. Analysis to measure the outcomes of project activities. And communication of the impact of project activities on water quality, habitat, or resiliency to inform farming communities, which also supports GMD's 4th metric for education and outreach. The eligible location for project activities in this NOFO is the entire Gulf of Mexico watershed, as shown in the map on this slide. Please also see Appendix C for the eligible counties in the state of Florida. EPA expects to fund 10 to 20 projects with awards between $1 million to $2 million, for a total of $20 million. So where should you start? First, read the NOFO and ensure your project and your eventual application meet the requirements. The NOFO contains vital information that can improve scoring and quality of application. Next, there are several items to confirm for your organization prior to starting your application. Confirm that your organization is eligible. The list of eligible entities can be found in Section 3A of the NOFO. Also confirm your organization has a current registration with the System for Award Management at SAM.gov, a unique entity identifier, and is registered in grants.gov. This is extremely important since obtaining a UEI could take more than 30 days. Not obtaining these in time is not an allowable reason for a late application to be accepted, so please double-check these as soon as possible. Plan your project. When developing your project idea, keep the following in mind. The project must meet the priorities of the funding opportunity for which you apply. The priorities can be found in Section 1B of the NOFO. Any projects that do not will be rejected. Your project must state how it is relevant to EPA Strategic Plan goals. EPA Strategic Plan linkage can be found in Section 1C1. As you are planning your project, be sure to consider the potential outputs and outcomes you expect and how those will be identified in your application. After you've worked to develop the project and project details, You are ready to write your project narrative. To approach this, utilize the project narrative format found in Appendix C of the NOFO. This provides a format for the summary information page and the project work plan. We suggest you use this format to ensure you cover everything that will be evaluated in Section 5A. Be sure to review the NOFO for the full project narrative format and any cautionary information. As a side note, beyond the project narrative, there are other forms and documents required, including the budget table shown on the next slide. Please see Section 4B of the NOFO for more information on these items. Tips to keep in mind when writing the project narrative are: use succinct, meaningful sentences. Please do not include unnecessary or irrelevant information not requested in the contents of submission section, including the project narrative. Readability. Font should be no smaller than Calibri 11 point and margin should not be smaller than 1 inch. The project narrative should be a maximum of 12 pages. This includes 1 page for summary information and a project work plan of up to 11 pages. Please note any excess pages will not be reviewed. Maps, tables should be included at the end of the document and will not be counted against the 12-page limit for the project narrative. The project narrative and environmental results section should adequately describe what can be anticipated from the project. Programmatic capability. This section should describe your organizational knowledge and experience in working with farming communities. The budget narrative should only include information not easily understandable in the budget table or that requires additional information for a budget category. Examples are listed in Appendix C under Budget Narrative, but include description of the roles and responsibilities of personnel, description of what supplies will be used for, description of why the purchase of equipment is preferable to rental, provide contract details such as whether it will be sole sourced or competed and why that choice was made, and description of activities of subawards. Describe each item in sufficient detail for EPA to determine cost effectiveness, reasonableness, and allowability of the cost. Cost effectiveness will consider the organizational overhead or indirect costs and indirect costs versus anticipated results. Just a reminder, the budget narrative together with the budget table described on the next slide will be evaluated under the budget evaluation criteria found in Section 5A. So if you have a budget table but no narrative to explain items that are difficult to understand, you may be evaluated less favorably. Developing a budget table. On GMD's webpage, there is a link to a recommended budget table template that is pictured on this slide. Utilizing this template in conjunction with the budget narrative will ensure the application has all the information needed to evaluate the budget proposed for the project. This budget table provides more detail on the cost identified on the SF424A. The budget object class category amounts on your SF424A must match the budget object class category totals on your detailed budget table. For more information on developing your budget table, please see EPA's budget development guidance at epa.gov/sites/applicant-budget-development-guidance.pdf. Requested funding should be in alignment with the anticipated results, meaning an applicant should not request the maximum amount just because the maximum amount is available. As we said on the previous slide, there are likely several categories in the budget table that you should include more detailed information for so they can be evaluated as necessary for the project. Please be sure to include that information in the budget narrative section of the project work plan, or this section may be reviewed less favorably. A reminder for all awards after October 1st, 2024, changes to 2 CFR 200 Uniform Grant Guidance are effective. A few notable changes are the indirect de minimis rate increases from 10% to 15%, and the threshold between supply and equipment changes from $5,000 to $10,000. Now that your project narrative and project budget are complete, look at the evaluation criteria in Section 5A. For each evaluation criterion, compare your project narrative and project budget to the corresponding section. Be sure that there is a response for each identified evaluation criterion, and what you've included in your project narrative and budget is sufficient information to support good evaluation for each. Under the past performance section, if your organization has never received a grant or assistance agreement, please state that to receive half the points. If you skip or fail to provide any information for any evaluation criterion, you will get a 0 for that section. The table on this slide shows the point value of each evaluation section. I'm going to say this again. It is very important that you read the criteria identified in Section 5A and provide sufficient detail in the narrative and budget for every item to be evaluated. Refer to Section 4B of the NOFO for detailed instructions for each required document listed on this slide. The required application documents are the SF-424 application for federal assistance, the SF-424A for the budget information, EPA 5700-54 for key context for the project, EPA Form 4700-4, which is a pre-award compliance review document, the project narrative, which includes the summary information page, work plan, detailed budget narrative, and maps and tables, the budget table, resumes or CVs of principal investigators and critical staff, negotiated indirect cost rate agreement if applicable, and letters of support are required for partners with substantial involvement. Please note that there is an exception to the required documents. The negotiated indirect cost rate agreement is only required if you have a federally negotiated indirect cost rate. If you are not requesting indirect cost, or you are requesting the 15% federal de minimis, you will not have to submit this supporting document. Applications are due as stated in the NOFO on Tuesday, January 28, 2025. EPA first conducts a threshold eligibility review, which should be completed by February 6, 2025, where each application is evaluated to make sure it's eligible. The threshold eligibility criteria can be found in Section 3E. You will be notified if your project is deemed ineligible. If deemed ineligible, it will not proceed to merit review. EPA merit review committees will then score and rank all eligible applications. This should be completed by the end of March 2025. In late April 2025, EPA will notify applicants selected for tentative awards. Unsuccessful applicants will also be notified at that time. Selected applicants will work with their respective project officer to submit a full funding package to GMD's office by July 2025, which includes all revisions and modifications. After internal review, it will be submitted to the Regional Grant Office for additional review and final award. Grant awards are expected around December 2025, and then projects may begin. On this slide, you will find 2 links to additional helpful resources. The first is to the GMD's Gulf of Mexico website, where you can find a link to the Gulf of Mexico Farmer to Farmer 2024 BIL NOFO webpage. On that webpage, you can find links to the NOFO itself, the question and answer document, this presentation, a common errors documents for assistance in filling out forms, and other helpful links, including assistance in developing a budget. The second link is to epa.gov/grants, which is to EPA's grants webpage. This webpage provides additional resources for EPA grant applicants and recipients, including multiple trainings. Thank you for attending this webinar. GMD hopes it will be helpful as you begin planning your project. If you still have questions after listening to this presentation, reading the NOFO, and reviewing both the question and answer and common errors documents, please email us at gmp-rfp@epa.gov. Thank you very much and have a great day.